Again, I would like to draw something new. I look a little bit chillaxed right now, don't I? These are my new tactical shoes that I have, or tactical boots. They're the best boots I've ever owned right here. These are waterproof. They're zombie approved if the zombie apocalypse happens. They're really good. But funny enough, my feet still breathe because they got enough man-made material, like right in here, that allows your feet to breathe. And funny enough, when it's cold, they're warm too. So they're like the best. And where do you see the soles of these babies? Look at the soles on these, man. If you can see them, they're awesome. But anyway, I wanted to draw for you something brand new, something that I've been focused on lately. It's called a sun cross, and how the sun cross also has merged into the history of the Celtic cross. So what we're going to do is draw it a simple way, and maybe talk a little bit of the history of it. They surmise that the sun cross goes back. It's the oldest symbol known to man. It has been found in caves, on stone slabs, on walls, since before there was a written language. So it is the oldest symbol known to mankind, is the sun cross. And how I do it simply is, I draw an L. That's pretty simple, right? Draw an L. And then draw a backwards L. Then you're going to draw an inverted L. Then you're going to draw an inverted backwards L. To be perfect, these lines should be the same length. To be perfect. I can see that's a little shorter, that's a little shorter. And what you're going to do is, for now, just close off the ends of these by making a semicircle and connecting the ends. It won't look too good yet, but it'll all come together. See? Sun worshippers go way back. Matter of fact, there was even a famous Pharaoh in Egypt named Ignaton. He bucked the trend of all other pharaohs in that he denied the worship of many gods, which is really the entire Egyptian history is based on polytheism. Some even think he was the first monotheistic guy in the history of the world, was Ignaton. But what I'm going to do is put little dots. I'm going to put 2 dots there, a dot here, a dot there, a dot here, a dot there, a dot here, and a dot there. What that's going to do is going to keep you straight. Yeah, but old Ignaton rose to power, and he said, yeah, you have all these other gods, but he doesn't beat the sun god. I think the original god was Amun in those times, and it merged into a worship of Amun-Ra, and Ra stood for the sun god. So Amun-Ra was like the most powerful of all the gods. So he kind of started his own religion, I think, basically. I forget all of it because it's been a while since I've read it. But what really was intriguing to me is that he banned the worship of all the other false gods, so he said, and the true God is the sun god. And he even was going to move the holy places, the temples to worship, to where the sun rose. He had open air areas so the sun would shine on the recipients, so they could be blessed by the sun god. And it's pretty interesting that he would do that in the culture of ancient Egypt because, you know, people were like really opposed to it. Matter of fact, he didn't make him warm and fuzzy to the populace. Most of the people rebelled against it because man by nature is a polytheist, meaning he tends to worship a lot of gods. It is kind of against nature to worship one. Some even say we're polygamist by nature, you know, but that's going another way. But basically, you become monotheistic and monogamous by divinity. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, or divine assistance, divine aid. But think about this. Ancient Egypt, all these gods, they had a god for everything. A god for the sky, a god for the water, a god for the trees, a god for the forest, a god for every spirit of the animal, a god for this, a god for that. So he said, no. None of those gods are as important or as powerful as the sun god. Because without the sun, you wouldn't have anything. You wouldn't have life, you wouldn't have heat, you wouldn't have warmth, nothing would grow. So he had a point. So he believed so puritanically about it is he actually would tear down statues of all the other gods. He forbade the worship of any other gods. and it didn't make him that popular with the people at large. So he had a little son who was 9 years old. Some even say he poisoned him. Now, being only 9 years old, he probably doesn't have the wherewithal to fashion such a diabolical plan. So there were assistants of his son. When he later came to power, they were behind him, aiding him and giving him guidance. And I forget the names of those people, but they say even they could have been involved in his poisoning, if he was indeed poisoned. He might have just died of something he caught, because there was inbreeding back then, and people were frail and sickly because they thought that they were God inside them. They thought they were actually, have a divine line. So the pharaohs would intermarry or sometimes have relations with like a sister or something like that. So you can look at some of their skull shapes, and their different ailments is due to inbreeding. But he was only 9 years old, and he became king. That little guy became the most successful pharaoh in all of Egypt. They even struck Akhenaten from the record books. That's how much they thought he was against the history of their culture. So you can never find much about Akhenaten. But read about him, because he was an interesting pharaoh. He believed in one God, and nobody did back then. Some people even believe it's before the Hebrews. This is before Moses came on the scene. Some people even might say that Moses learned from Akhenaten some of the stuff of having one God and made it popular with the children of Israel. All I'm doing here now is connecting those dots that I drew. Okay? But to make a long story short, or even longer, the son rose to power. He became king at 9 years old, and he changed his name. He would have been Akhenaten II. He changed his name to put Amen in it, because he wanted to be the worship of Amen, which was the old ways, not Amen-Ra. So he wanted to go show the people that he was going to return Egypt back to the old ways, to where everybody could worship whoever they wanted, and all the gods they want, as many gods as they want. He became one of the richest pharaohs of all time, and of course the most famous. And he changed his name to include Amen in it instead of Akhenaten. He went against his dad's name. And Ankh is in his name, because I think it has to do with divine right, or divinity, or to be the image of one of the gods. So it was Tut, Ankh, Amen. King Tut. That's Akhenaten's son. Okay, now to make this interesting, you're going to come out like this. But like I said, this is a traditional sun cross, found in caves, pedestals, worship places, before mankind even had a written language. I think before there was even iron. But it's around the same time, I think. I could be wrong there. Because really the circle represents the moon. But if you have a cross in the middle of the circle, it represents the sun. There's two reasons for that. It could be during the daylight we have directions. We have north, south, east, and west. And the sun gives light to all. So north, south, east, and west over a circle is the sun god, or the sun. And also, when man invented fire, this is how far back it goes, you had like a fire bow. When laid upon a bowl, would give the image of a bowl with a fire bow where you rub the sticks together. It becomes fire. So either way, this became a symbol of fire and of the sun. And I think I'm right in saying it's the oldest symbol known to man. And you'll see it in many places. If it kind of rings a bell, you're a comic book fan, watch what happens when I do this. It's the X-Men symbol for the X-Men. Okay. But that is the sun cross. I've got to go. My battery's running out. But good old St. Patrick came along, and he thought, yeah, the sun is important, S-U-N, but he wanted people to know about the S-O-N, which pertains to life, everlasting. So you just add that symbol to it. Extend that over there. Extend that like that. Bring this way down. Extend that. And if you add a couple of lines, you now have a Celtic cross. And that's how you can see within the Celtic cross is the sun cross. And that's how he merged a pagan symbol to teach Christianity as well. But if you ever wondered why the Celtic cross looks very unique, because it's got these rings, this is the way I figured out how to draw it. Just think of the sun cross first. And of course, use your imagination. When you draw it yourself, you can do anything you want. People do these elaborate Celtic knots you can do inside where the cross arms are. You can do all kinds of interesting things. I can just do it real quick just to thicken it up a little, because thick lines look better than little skinny, frail lines. Make it more unique and chunky looking. So that is a brief history of the Sun Cross and its influence in the Irish peoples becoming what we know as the Celtic Cross. My history lesson for the day. But read up about King Tut. It's pretty interesting. I actually think the little guy did poison him, but that's just a theory I have. It's never been proven. I think someone poisoned him. It might have been his advisors that ended up helping him when he became king, because they were all against Ignatin, because he forced everybody to worship only one God. And man doesn't like that. All right.